Welcome to Double Vision, dawn of the double feature.
Alright, so the film I chose for tonight is Compulsion. This film was made by a guy I met named Brian Sapanzik. I hope I got that right. I've known him on a first name basis, but never actually...
Shout out to Brian.
Yeah, and thank you for giving us the advance sort of screener for this film. I know like a few small run of VHS tapes were made for this and were sold, and it's been going through a lot of festival runs lately, but I do appreciate the opportunity for doing it on this podcast. So 3 years ago, me and my friend Olivia, shout out Olivia Stewart if you're listening, by the way, we went down to Seattle and saw John Carpenter perform at the Paramount, which was amazing, by the way. Like, played all of his film scores with like a screen behind it, and just had like a montage, as well as like all of his like lost themes that he never actually used for any films. So I was there and ran into a guy I know named Nick Yakashin. Plays in a local metal band called Baptist. He actually scored Compulsion with Brian.
Oh, crazy.
And the lead singer of Baptist is actually the main character in Compulsion.
Oh, okay. He has cool hair.
Yeah. So we bumped into each other at the show randomly, like, whoa, random to see you here. And then afterwards, went our own ways and ended up, me and my friend went to the bar, and then him and his friend Brian, who wrote and directed this film, ended up being there, and we kind of met briefly through there, and I think I must have connected somehow with Instagram, and like haven't really seen him since then, but knew through Instagram that he was sort of in the process of making this film, and was really interested to see it, and we started doing this podcast, and I got really inspired to be like, well, we should get something local. I'd really like to do something local for this, and when I knew that film was coming out, I kind of reached out to him to be able to review it on this podcast. So thanks for doing that, and I just want to say flat out, I loved it. Just curious what you guys thought about it.
I thought it was amazing. Like seeing the way that was written, it's like all of these flashes of like people getting stabbed and like things and are happening, and it feels all like real thoughts that can be plaguing or that like we go through, like the life battle of gaining mental health victories. Like everyone goes through gaining mental health, but it felt like multiple like compulsive thoughts that were expanding and becoming like everything for him, and then like
he just like busts his nut when he fucking kills somebody. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like.
What did you think of it, Brendan?
It feels like this. It feels like this boiling pot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome, man. I mean, it was like funny because, like in the first scene, it's just Andrew, like the main dude, and it's a buddy of mine. I was like, oh, it's Andrew, and then the first.
That's funny. So did it take you out of the film? Did it take you out of the film?
Yeah, a little bit, because I was like, oh, that's my buddy. And
I know. It's the same, like, my uncle was an actor who passed away. Rest in peace, Michael Roberts. Played Uncle Fester on the Addams Family, but it's like, anything I see of him, it's just like, that's my uncle, but to anybody else, it's like, so I know that feeling, absolutely.
And
go
then,
on.
But also the first chick that gets killed in it is, I used to live across the hall from her.
Oh, no way.
First apartment when I moved back here. She actually got me the place. She's a friend of her friend Elizabeth, and yeah, it was just funny because I was like, I don't know. It felt like Vancouver in a nutshell is just so fucking small. You can't even like watch a short film without seeing everybody. You know.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that because that takes you out of the film, but then there's certain aspects of it, like so there's a follow shot where he's walking on Hastings past like the Astoria, and it didn't really take me out of the film, but more put the perspective of the film. Like, you know where that area is in Vancouver, you know how bad that area is. You're like, where this character is lurking is like, I don't know. It makes you almost creeped out to like walk down that area now. You know what I mean?
Well, it was funny. Like, I knew it was him before it even showed his face because the first few scenes of that, I think that follows.
Right.
And and like I just knew from like the way he walks. Like I was like, but anyways, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was awesome. So, I watched it like a couple weeks ago, so it's not fresh for me. But
that's like Nightmare Beach for me.
Yeah. What I wanted to say about the OCD within the first 2 minutes of the film is, so he goes down into a basement suite, and you see sort of his his murder weapons and his sort of costume laid out on a table. But the thing I found specifically interested about that is there were 3 items laid perfectly out on a table, and I don't have this personally with my OCD, but a lot of people, and it's very, very common with OCD, is they do things in patterns of 3s. I don't know if that was intentional or if it was just a freak coincidence, but I thought that was an interesting little feature of the film.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I thought there was a lot that could be like up for interpretation in the film, like the scene where he's in the workplace and he's witnessing like an injury, and he's puking. I didn't really know how to perceive that at first, but then I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, maybe he's seeing like some aspects of himself that he really doesn't like in that moment of like, oh my god, like thinking back to what he's done, and like that makes him sick of himself in some sense. Yeah. Same with like the gigantic rectangular light in the middle of the alleyway that he's just facing. I almost like, I didn't know how to take that at first, but then the more I sort of thought about it, I'm like, it's almost like some sort of sign of like there is good out there, and like there is a way out.
It's a similar feeling I had watching that to when I would watch used to watch like Terrence Malick movies, and like I talk about Terrence Malick a lot, but he was like my number one dude. Like I would just put on his movies and like meditate.
It reminded me of a few different films. Maniac, Don't Go in the House, Beyond the Black Rainbow specifically. And I say that's because Eva Bourne is actually in Beyond the Black Rainbow and also is the girl at the very, very end who escapes the house. Which that scene I thought was amazing too, because like I thought that it leaves, like, I was wanting more, and that end scene sort of leaves it up for the option of like an extended version of this film or like a sequel in some way. And like I find that smart how they did that, because that's exactly what Terrifier did. They made it as like a short 15-minute film at first, and then it got a lot of like high
the clown.
And it got a lot of high reviews and just a lot of
it became like a full length.
Yeah, exactly it. So it's like I could definitely see that happening with Compulsion. My one complaint of anything, and it's barely even a complaint, is I got kind of worried at like the 2/3 point of the film, because it almost looked like it could have gone in a direction of like very supernatural and like over symbolism, but it didn't do that. It's just kind of like hinting at that sort of stuff. It very kept to like a realistic vibe, which I find is sort of essential with like serial killer films.
Totally.
And I found that with like, I liked aspects of Beyond the Black Rainbow, which obviously like Eva Bourne's in this, and I can see a lot of influence from that film. And I liked Beyond the Black Rainbow, but it was just a little bit too much symbolism for me, and just like over the top for me to like totally.
I haven't seen it yet, but like Mandy felt that way definitely the whole way through, where it's like this like ridiculous John Carpenter-esque thing, but then it has these flashes of like, oh, suddenly this like meditative psychedelic moment.
So this film has won some awards. For Oregon Scream Week, it gave Best International Film. It won the Audience Award for Best Short Film at the Edmonton Festival of Fear International Film Festival. It won the Director's Award at the Portland Horror Film Festival. It won Best Cinematography at Genre Blast Film Festival. And Best Villain, Most Creative Kill, and Bloodiest Horror Film at Fear International Horror Genre Awards. It's also screened locally at the Vancouver Short Film Festival, Vancouver Badass Film Festival, and the Rio Grande Film Festival. So it's getting a lot of traction, which is amazing, which I think it deserves. And the VHS cover that they have, like for the box set, they got it done by this guy Spielberg. Have you heard of this guy or followed on Instagram?
Steven Spielberg?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he did a couple Gremlin flicks.
Gremlin flick.
Yeah, the dinosaur ones.
Yeah. With the penis head man with large man with.
And it was completely on topic.
Jeff Goldblum?
This guy Spielberg did the VHS covers for this film, and if you follow his Instagram handle, I am Spielberg, he's actually his whole thing is basically just taking current films and old films and just redoing VHS covers for them and re-releasing this box set. So his work's amazing. Like you've probably seen like a lot of like Stephen King and like Stranger Things like sort of remakes and redos. He does an amazing job. So I love that. I'm just going to read a quote what Brian said about this film that I found. With this film, we wanted to do something that was a nod to the old 80s slashers that we love, but try and do it with a different perspective. We wanted to create something that was more bleak and realistic as we follow someone who is trying to deal with such violent impulses, and I think we've accomplished that. Yeah. I could definitely...
The music was insane, too.
The music, the score was amazing, and I love the really bleak, just punchy credits. Like, they're just...
Yeah. Lots of times a short film or, like, shorts at a festival get less credit than they should. Like, they're seen as less than, like, a feature, but it's like, they're not. It's just in that mind. It's like, oh, that's a short film. It's not going to be this big explosive thing when it unreleased or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or like, I don't know.
But just think about doing like a horror film, like especially like that on that level with like having makeup and special effects and everything. Like, you could make a short film of any other genre, save like science fiction or fantasy, and it'd be like little to no budget. But like that shit was, I thought the the gore, or however you want to put it, was done really well. Like, it didn't look cheesy. Totally. It didn't look like bullshit, like ketchup.
Totally, and I was,
like, it was cool.
I was like watching it, expecting local actors feel and like mildly shitty film school, just because you were like, oh, I met this guy on a road trip.
And I didn't really give much backstory besides
that. Yeah, exactly. So in my head, I'm like, okay, this is going to be like not shitty, but like not great. But it was like amazing, legitimately. Mm-hmm. It was probably the most like powerful, well, definitely the most powerful movie we've watched, like that had a clear statement.
Mm-hmm.
Where like
I reference Maniac because specifically that film follows as your lead character is the serial killer. So I thought that was great how they did that with this. Like, there's no dialogue from him as well, too, which I find insane. It's all you're just wondering what's going on in his head. So that's kind of why I wanted to see like this brought into a feature film, because I'd like to know more about the character. I'd like to know more about his past, like how it came to be. And like a lot of those follow shots, like I've seen in a lot of other films that don't look good, but in this specifically, those follow shots looked amazing. Like when it's just trudging behind the character, like down the shot by the Astoria, it looked amazing.
Yeah.
I don't have much more to say about that.
Yeah, like
I really, really loved it, and I really want to see this film do really, really well, which it has been, but I just really want to see as much exposure on this film as I can, because I'd love to see something local like this just blow up into something big.